The 28-year veteran was on the team that evacuated Vice President Dick Cheney on 9/11, and she served on then Vice President Biden's protective detail. He named her director in mid-2022. Amid a swirl of controversy over the agency deleting nearly all of its text messages from January 6th. The agency says that was due to a data migration.
System migrations happen, but I think for a lot of Americans, it just doesn't pass the smell test, given the timing and the volume of messages deleted.
Well, it's unfortunate that that would be the assumption that people would make. Our integrity is everything, and there was nothing nefarious attached to that.
Their integrity has been put to the test.
Folks, even CBS News doesn't believe the story about the text. How bad does it got to be? This is a first, folks. We don't do this often. A very special guest on the show today, especially on the podcast, but this is going to be a treat for you. Speaker Mike Johnson is joining us on the podcast. Sir, thank you so much for spending some time. We really appreciate it.
Great to see you.
It's good to see you, too, especially here at the RNC. First, I want to just discuss the tragedy that happened this weekend, something I wish I didn't have to talk to you about. Then I just want to get to the RNC environment in general, because it's very electric here, despite what happened, which is incredible. But congressional oversight, obviously, is your thing, tautologically. I had a conversation with Jim Jordan yesterday. There are obviously going to be hearings on this. You being the speaker, you're in charge. Are we going to keep this focused? Because my fear here is that, as you've seen in the past with some of these other hearings, and I'm not talking about you specifically, I've actually been with you at hearings when you were a member, just a regular member there. Are we going to keep this focused and question-oriented and no filibustering things? This is not a partisan affair at all.
No, it's a great point, Dan, and we're going to do something very different here. I announced just this morning, about an hour ago, I'm going to take the reins of this thing, and we're going to set up a task force, a precision kind of strike on this. It doesn't need to be the normal committee process. You know how those things get bogged down. This is really serious stuff, as you've noted.
Life or death.
We got to get the answers to this quickly, and if we don't, people are going to begin to make up their own mind about things that might have been going on there, and I think that's really dangerous. Obviously, there was extraordinary lapses of security and terrible mistakes here that have been made. They need to be admitted to. We need to get accountability, and we need to move forward and make sure it doesn't happen again. So setting up a task force is the way to do that. We'll have subpoena authority for this. It'll be a small group of members who have background and expertise like yours, people who are special ops, who understand what should have happened there and what didn't. And it'll be Republican and Democrat. We'll move forward. We'll do it quickly in a streamlined fashion. We don't have reams of documents here. This is one event, one finite set of facts. We got to get down to the bottom of it and do it quickly.
Mr. Speaker, this is a non-partisan. I don't want to say bipartisan. This is a non-partisan affair. I was interviewing Tucker last night on the podcast in a primetime special, and listen, he brought up something interesting. Democrats have security too.
Yes.
President Biden, his entire team. I mean, you have the NSA, National Security Director. You have a very talented team of Capitol Police security agents here today. I've worked with them in the past. I went to a surveillance school with a bunch of really talented guys. We're just human beings. You've got a family too. You don't want to get hurt. I mean, are you sensing, and please give my audience a skinny on this, are you sensing that even the Democrats, because Jim Jordan had seemed to allude to the fact that even the Democrats seem to be, at least in the beginning of this, concerned, like, yeah, we can't have this. Like, this is not our thing.
Yes, it's a great point. I mean, this is not a partisan issue. It shouldn't be. I mean, we have to make sure that we have a Secret Service that does its job and does it well. And every member of Congress and obviously every president, every administration has direct interest in that. I spoke to the Democrat leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, yesterday. Hakeem is a very even-keeled, steady-minded guy, and he has the same concerns. And he agrees that it needs to be bipartisan, and they want to get down to the bottom of it as well. So I think that's what you'll see. I think you'll see a cooperative investigation. That's what is necessary right now. That's what the country demands and deserves.
Yeah. Well, now, Speaker, I appreciated you coming on my radio show. We disagreed on FISA. Everyone can go and listen to that. I don't want to relitigate that entire thing today. But from a global picture on that, are you disturbed by the fact that the FBI, again, is asking for all these resources, which many Republicans said, okay, fine. And how do they keep missing the threats? Steve Scalise, Brett Kavanaugh, now this abomination. I mean, what's next? I mean, at some point, somebody's going to have to answer for this, that if we're going to install this surveillance apparatus, then can we at a minimum intercept at least one of these things? I mean, this is a really, really serious threat. But your colleague, Steve Scalise, I mean, came within seconds of bleeding out on a baseball field.
The FBI has been corrupted from bad leadership. It's not the field agents we always specify, and you clarify as well. It's not these loyal, patriotic people who are serving out in the field. It's the people who are making the decisions at the top. When we did do the FISA bill, we added 56 key reforms. Jim Jordan helped lead and draft, and the Judiciary Committee, everybody put together to ensure that these abuses can't happen again. With regard to the surveillance, of course, the purpose of the program is in its title, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. It's surveilling known threats and known terrorists. And I can't reveal classified information right now, but I spoke last night with the Director of National Intelligence in that office. I've spoken to Secretary Mayorkas, who had no answers. But we have used our capabilities to uncover some plots that were against President Trump and some current figures right now. The system does work when it's used properly. The abuses are what we have to prevent. We put in 56 safeguards to make sure that doesn't happen. If somebody uses that database to query an American or go after an American and violate their due process rights or their Fourth Amendment rights, they will be prosecuted. They go to jail for 10 years. So there's a real deterrence in the law now.
Well, we had a pretty vigorous conversation about that
Yeah.
on the show. I encourage everyone to listen. Again, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Can I ask, as a personal favor and a man who worked presidential protection for Democrats and Republicans, my sources are unimpeachable sources feeding me information from the top. It emerged last night. I put it out on my show right before you came on, that post on that roof where that attacker was and engaged with President Trump and nearly killed him was supposed to be posted up by a local counter-surveillance asset. The asset did not make it to the roof, apparently posted up on the second floor instead. Now, it's up to the Secret Service to check that. They didn't. It is ultimately their responsibility. But the Special Operations Division surveys, Mr. Speaker, the counter sniper survey, which is paper and email generated, and the CAT survey, counter assault team survey, will indicate if that was a post. If that's a post, somebody's lying. Because then Kim Cheadle, the Secret Service director, who said, we didn't put someone up there because of the slope of the roof, like this
Crazy.
is an OSHA violation.
It's crazy.
She's now lying. And can I ask you, if you get that paperwork and it shows what my sources are telling me are true, there should be a push for her to resign immediately for misleading Americans.
I called for her resignation this morning. I've
Good.
seen enough
Good.
already,
Good.
but we're after that, and thanks for digging it up. The first question I asked was the most obvious. I don't have a background in special ops. I'm a constitutional law attorney, but I asked Mayorkas Saturday night, within hours of the event, one quick question, the obvious one. My sons were asking me, Mr. Secretary, where were the drones? Like,
Yes, that's right. Look, I had this question for you. Where was the aerial surveillance?
Is that not standard
My wife
practice?
found a drone, Mr. Speaker, for $39.99 on
Yeah,
Amazon.
right.
We're spending $6 trillion. We can't buy the Secret Service some darn drones.
My teenage son would have volunteered his. I'm like,
my
wouldn't a
gosh.
drone have seen somebody on a roof? And Mayorkas did not know the answer to that question on Saturday night. Now, look, I understand he wasn't in charge of the operation and all that, but come on. I mean, there were serious lapses here, and you don't have to have Dan Bongino's resume to understand that something is amiss.
My wife's a web developer. She's like, Dan,
Right.
they didn't have a drone?
Right.
I live in this community in Stewart, Florida. There were drones flying around all
Yeah.
the time. It's unforgivable. Let me move on to a couple other things. You're here at the RNC. You're out there on the floor. We've been in here broadcasting. We're going to go to the floor for the speech on Thursday. But have you sensed it? Like, I know they become tropes and cliched, and I hate that. But there really is a palpable energy. I didn't feel it in 2020. We had COVID going on. It was remember the virtual thing they did?
Oh, yeah.
It was this sense of just that everything was macabre, and we tried to light it up. President Trump gave a great speech. But that's not the case. I mean, Paul and I have been walking by the bridge, and people are stopping us, are excited, and want to take selfies and everything. And I go to a lot of events. The excitement here, I think people sense that this could be, no red wave talk. You and I have had no landslide talk.
No.
Don't blow it, folks. Get out
No.
there and vote. But I think people sense that there's some real change coming here.
Something is happening in America, and it is different. It's different than at any moment that I've ever been involved in politics in my life. I'm traveling around the speaker's job when we're not in session, is to go around the country and go campaign with our incumbents and the challengers that we recruited to flip the blue seats to red. So I've been north, south, east, west. I've done events in 144 cities in 31 states in the last 7 months. Dan, we're seeing a demographic shift in the country. We have a record number of Hispanic and Latino voters coming to the Republican side. We have a record number of black voters, African Americans. We have the Jewish community is so energized because they know that Joe Biden and the Democrats abandoned Israel, and they have. So you have all these dynamics going on. Then you have the debate, which was seismic, right?
Then the Jack Smith. I mean,
Then the Jack Smith thing. Then the failed assassination attempt.
Then he gets up and screams fight in the greatest, most iconic snapshot of all time.
You can't. I mean, this is like you couldn't script this. There's something providential happening here, and I've spoken to President Trump about this at great length. You know, I was reminded. You're an amateur historian like I am. You know, remember we used to talk about
amateur.
Well, okay.
Very amateur.
Well, you play
but
one
I'm
on
a
TV.
believer in
Okay,
Jesus Christ. Like
that's right.
That I'm not an amateur.
That's the main thing. But speaking of that, so our first president, George Washington, was called the bulletproof president, right? And the famous story of the French and Indian War, when he goes through the barrage of gunfire, the ambush in the forest in 1755, he emerges. 2 forces are shot out from beneath him. He takes a third one, finishes the battle. He's an army colonel. He gets off, takes off his coat. He's got 4 bullet holes in his vest, and he wasn't hit. So he writes to his family and he says, "The divine hand of providence spared me on this day." He had more to do, clearly. So after Saturday night, after we knew Trump was okay, I was reminded of the bulletproof George Washington story. I went back, got the history book, started reading, and I went, "Oh my gosh, that event took place, Dan, 47 miles from where Donald Trump was shot, also in July, there in Pennsylvania." I relayed the story to the president. I said, "Look, no one can deny this. Our atheist friends will not be able to deny that this is a miraculous thing, that God has providentially spared you, and he clearly has something for you to do. This is a big moment in the country."
They will. I mean, they're actually making fun of us for saying things like this. And
let them make fun, Dan. The people are with us. They get
it. Because
it.
independent middle America sees exactly. We played an animation before. The millimeters change the entire course of American and global political.
100%.
By the way, we're the largest stream in the world right now. 182,000 people watch it. So this is a good chance to get the message out. Let me ask you one last question, and I'll let you go. You've been generous with your time. My listeners are very, very, very concerned about mail-in voter fraud.
Yeah.
It's a subject that's been highlighted repeatedly by the left. I know you think I'm crazy, but go out and look the article up. A 2012 article by the New York Times. When absentee balloting was primarily Republican in the swing state of Florida, military and older folks, the New York Times was very concerned about fraud. They wrote an entire piece saying error and rejection rates are double for mail-in balloting. We're stuck with it with this election. I get it. But if you remain the speaker and you have, say we pick up 10 more seats, no red wave talk, it's forbidden. But say it happens and we have a good day, 10, 15, maybe more, who knows, and we get back to Senate. Can you assure the listeners that this will be one of the top priorities to do something nationally to clean up this mess, which we can't do anything about state elections, but federal, we can clean this disaster up?
We've already started. We passed the SAVE Act, as you know,
I know
2 weeks ago.
And he's already said he wouldn't.
He said he'd veto it, which is a crazy, Dan.
Well, tell them what the SAVE Act says, because it's so simple.
It's very simple. So here's the thing. For background, all these illegals are coming into the country. I think it's 16 million illegals that have come across since Joe Biden opened it. Why? They did it intentionally. We know that. We've all talked about it. Why? Because they want to turn them into voters. Here's the proof. So the SAVE Act says when all these people come into the country, the administration, through the NGOs, ships them all around the country, planes, trains, and automobiles. Then they send the receipts, and we all pay for it. Taxpayers fund this. When they get to the local community, the administration and people down the chain say, "Hey, head as soon as possible to the welfare office so you can sign up for taxpayer benefits." Well, here's the thing. When you go to do that, they also give you a form because of the motor voter registration laws in the early 90s.
Right.
Do you want to register to vote?
Right.
All you got to do is check one little box. This is, "I'm a U.S. citizen." This is the outrageous thing. Right now, under federal law, the states are prohibited from requiring proof of citizenship. They can't ask. Federal courts have interpreted the law. It's madness. So all they got to do is check the box. Dan, if 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 1,000 of 16 million illegals participate in the election, they can throw a congressional race, the majority in the House, and maybe the presidential in the right states. So we passed this very fundamental piece of legislation that says, yes, the states have to require proof of citizenship.
Right. Nothing remotely controversial.
Good grief. And hey, check your voter rolls and make sure they haven't already enlisted, because we know that some have. The few states that have done audits have already found it. So 198 Democrats in the House voted against that legislation. There's not a more common sense, simple piece of legislation.
How many voted for? 4? Was it 4?
Five voted in favor because they're terrified they're going to lose their seats. These people, this is crazy, and we're going to make it famous. We passed it out of the House. We sent it to the Senate. We're asking everyone, all the 180,000 people who are watching and listening, and those who listen later, prevail upon your Democrat senators, if you're in one of those states, that they must bring the SAVE Act up for a vote. Schumer has to bring it up, and we'll push it to Joe Biden's desk and make him sign it. It's the only way to truly secure the election.
And you're relatively confident that if we can get majorities in both, that we'll still need some on the Senate side, maybe a little help, but with political pressure from the hopefully a Trump White House, knock on wood, that we can get this done, because it could change the entire
100%. Look,
history.
we're going to have a very aggressive first 100 days agenda for the Congress. We're laying out the playbook right now because we're not putting the cart before the horse.
Can I ask you that one last thing? I'm sorry, I promise I'll let you go, because
Sure.
I'm actually running out of time too. I got to do the radio show in a little bit, but this is good. I don't want to phrase this the wrong way, so I'm not trying to insult you. This is going to all be done professionally, correct? The blueprint is already being laid out, so we're not coming in there, mishmashing stuff around.
No.
This guy wants to be on TV, and this guy, we have an agenda ready to rock
nonsense.
and roll.
No nonsense.
Okay.
Well, I learned less. I came in freshman in 2017 when Trump came to Washington. I was a freshman in Congress.
Sure.
We squandered the first 2.5 months of that Congress because the Republican team wasn't ready to lead. Everybody thought Hillary was going to be president, so they didn't have the playbook ready. And I determined to myself and my classmates back then, man, if we're ever in charge, we're going to be prepared. Well, we didn't know that this would be the eventuality. So we're working right now, the Republicans in the Senate and the House, working together on a unified agenda to be ready to roll on day one and have a very aggressive 100 days agenda. The Trump administration's dialed in on it. Big priorities, big things we have to fix. And I told President Trump, I said, Mr. President, you could be the most consequential president of the modern era because we got to fix everything. We got to fix everything.
It's a mess.
The agenda will drive that and ensure that we make history, and we're going to be ready.
Mr. Speaker, thanks a lot for coming in.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it.
Great to
Welcome
see you,
back
brother.
anytime. Thanks
Thank
a
you,
lot. Speaker Mike Johnson, folks. So there we go. We talked Secret Service, the debacle that happened this weekend. We talked the new agenda, the energy at the RNC. That was pretty thorough. We got to a lot of stuff there. And we're going to bring you the best interviews the rest of the week, too. We had Congressman Lee Zeldin. I want to put this headline up, and you folks in the chat tell me how they're going to try to cover this up now, okay? Because there's going to be an October surprise, right? CNN Politics. Oh, look, a convenient leak just yesterday. Secret Service ramped up security after getting intel of the Iranian plot to assassinate Trump. No known connection to shooting. Really? This is new? The Iranian plot to assassinate Donald Trump, John Bolton, and Mike Pompeo? Hey, Michael, can you pull up that DOJ press release from August of 2022 before I get to this Tucker clip? I want to just show you something. Folks, that's bullshit. Now, the plot's real. The Iranians did and do want to kill Pompeo, Bolton, and Trump. I'm telling you it's real. I have from sources it's real. But it's not new. CNN broke this yesterday, I believe, for a reason. DOJ press release. Member of Iran's IRGC charged with a plot to murder former national security advisor. Look at the date, folks. August 10th, 2022. This is not new. So why release it yesterday? Why release a plot about the Iranians wanting to kill Donald Trump? Does it have anything to do with this conversation I had with Tucker Carlson last night? Tucker seems to be onto something, which I agree with. Maybe the distraction, the October surprise, is going to be an attack on the Iranians, and this story was kind of the perfect precursor to do it. Check this out. There's been an October surprise every midterm and election since 2016. Any idea about what it could be this time around? I mean, it could be anything from Donald Trump's handing Ukraine to Trump because him and Don Jr. working on a real estate project. You'd be like, really? When did that? I mean, any idea what that could be?
I have no idea. All I know is, and I didn't know this till this morning, that actually it was Iran that tried to kill Trump the other day.
Yeah, amazing.
It was Iran.
Yeah, he looked around. Isn't it incredible, by the way, how that leaked?
I knew the Iranians.
Isn't that how that leaked?
You know, I have felt for many years that the real threat to me was Iran. They're always calling me racist and flooding my country with illegal aliens. They're fentanyl and... Yeah, what's the October surprise? Of course, it's war, probably war with Iran. But I still don't think, and I'm totally opposed to that, actually. And I'm not pro-Iran, but Iran is irrelevant to the country that I live in, which is collapsing in a lot of ways that have nothing to do with Iran. So don't tell me Iran is the biggest problem, okay? Or Putin is the biggest problem. That's not true. I live here. That's not true. Those may be problems or whatever, you know, you can worry about that, but those are not the pressing problems. And anyone who tells you they are the pressing problems is a liar. A. B, I still don't think they can cheat Biden in because it's just so obviously false. No one will ever believe in democracy again. Biden is non-compos mentis. He appears to have Parkinson's or some neurological disorder, but that's obvious. It's not even debated anymore. And Trump just got shot in the face and stood up, like pushed off the Secret Service to stand with blood streaming out his face and said, fight. That's the leader. That's the comatose patient. There's no way you can do that. It's not just in America, but to the world. Not one person on the entire planet, billions of people will believe that.
Isn't that a convenient narrative, folks? Let's hope that my batting average, Michael, what's my batting average on conspiracy theories?
Big.
Still 1,000. Let's hope I'm wrong. They're going to start a war with Iran and go, look, they were trying to kill President Trump, and this is what we did. We're so strong. You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first. Hey, listen, I just want to put this out there for the chat. Guys and ladies, you're my brothers and sisters, and, you know, we speak truth to power. And if you heard our last interview on this exact topic, hey, Senator Ron Johnson over there, you know we do that. But it's really important we have people in the party we disagree with on the show, especially in prominent positions of power. I get it. A lot of you all, and I certainly object to his position on FISA. You can listen to my whole spirited interview about that. I also object to a lot of the positions on Ukraine. But if you and I, this is the power base, we're the news now. If we're not getting our thoughts out to these guys, then frankly, the projection of power part is useless. I hope you all understand that. It is critical that we get our thoughts and earworms in their ears. So I hope you all understand that. There's a reason I make these decisions, and they're not by accident. All right, folks, thanks again so much for tuning in. Please, tonight,